Okay, so Steve Forrester's here. So we are live. Hey, everybody.
Nice.
If I expand, what will that do? Bad things. Right. So let's not do that. Let's keep it here. Keep it chill. Hey, everybody. It's Friday afternoon AMA. We're back. It looks like it's working today. You just have to keep an eye on it. Hopefully you're here. Steve Forrester's here. And today we have special guests. It's Friday Live AMA with me, Ethan, your community manager. And today I have with me Danny Goldsmith. Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys.
We made it. A lot of people said they were going to come, so hopefully they're here. It's a little early yet. Let's not get into too deep into anything. Would you like to show me a trick? Because I don't know if you know this. I'm not a magician.
Oh, sure. Okay.
I'm a magician.
Let's do this. We got one of these. You can't see it because it's shrunk really small, but we stretch it out. There we go. We can get to become visible. Now, this is a single coin, but if we take this coin, we break it into really tiny pieces like this. They hang in the air. That's the first piece. We'll actually get a second piece here. Break these two pieces there, and then we have a fourth one. It's the fourth piece. So all four pieces, we can actually put those together. We can actually stretch them out to make not just one coin or two, but all four pieces becoming four solid silver dollars.
Nice. No, I remember when I was a kid, my brother worked, Aaron, my brother worked at Magic Masters in Washington, D.C. And they had a trick called Scotch and Soda, of course.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And that was perfect for me because I didn't have to do anything. I just had to supply my own nickel.
Nice.
Yeah. So that's my Coin Magic experience. Of course, I played with his shells and things growing up, but I don't know too much about it.
Nice.
First question is not for. Wait, Ethan doesn't do magic. That's right, I don't. For the new people, and hopefully we have a bunch of new people here, just to explain, Aaron Fisher is my brother. And he broke me. When you practice as much as he does when you're young, you have to practice with the person that's right next to you. And the person that's right next to you was me. And he broke me. So, no, I don't do magic. Growing up, did you have a sibling or anything like that you would?
Yeah, I have two little brothers.
Okay. But did you use them?
Neither of them do magic.
But are they sick of you doing it? Are they not into watching you do that anymore? Or are they all about it?
My youngest brother still loves it. Then the middle one, no, he doesn't care. But I don't think he likes he likes to be the center of attention most of the time, so I think that's why he doesn't like it.
Yeah, that's definitely a part of it. Not too proud of the resentments I had when I was a kid, but we're getting older, so we're better. It looks like it's 1:00. Christoph is here, Joe is here, Steve is here. So let's get started. We're doing these, and I've done a couple. You're the first person I've had on here that is not a member of the CC panel, the regular CC panel that's there every Wednesday. So thank you for coming.
Yeah, happy to.
It's an honor to have you. I'm trying to get people's magic origin stories out of them because, especially with the panel, they don't too much like to talk about. We try to keep the focus on members mostly, and so we don't hear those stories or war stories or anything like that. We save that, for the members and what they're working on. But I'm trying to figure out, a little bit about the origin story of people's magic lives, or maybe some things they were interested in outside of magic, also mixing it in with the magic, which I'm sure will be supplied by the members with some questions, hopefully. So my question to you is, what is your origin story as far as magic goes?
Yeah. So let's see. I was an artist. I just drew a lot. I was a sketch artist. And I loved, I just loved that precision to detail and working on something and seeing it finished. And when I was 15, my grandfather passed away, and he had given me all of my coins. He was a coin collector, and he gave me a whole bunch of silver when I was really young. And when he passed away, it was really a tough time for me. He was somebody in my life who was profoundly influential while growing up in a kind of chaotic family. So I was at his funeral, and I was grieving, and I believe I had a Walking Liberty $50 in my hand. And this guy came up, who was clearly a friend of my grandfather's. He said, "Hey, can I see that?" And I was, this kid sitting there grieving my grandfather, and this man asked to see my coin. It was kind of odd. I was like, "Yeah." And he put it on his finger, and he said, "Watch." And he had just like this, and he just went like that, and it was gone. And he showed both his hands empty. And it's beautiful. I was stunned. And he then went on to teach me. He was so kind to teach me this move, give me my coin back. And I'll never forget that experience, because even amongst this moment of kind of grief and sadness of losing someone I love, I had this experience of wonder and this sense of magic. And it reminded me that life could be magical. And I remember that moment changed my perspective of even my grandfather's death. Because there's, this experience of this grief and sadness, and yet simultaneously this experience of like overwhelming magic. And both of these experiences were so intense for me. My grandfather's obviously, but the magic thing stuck with me. And even after that guy taught me the move and walked off, my mind was just like, wow, like the possibilities. Like this is how cool to see something and experience something like that. And those two experiences kind of slowly melded throughout the day, and I got to have a different outlook on even my grandfather's passing, and how much that experience was opening to my mind and my heart and reminded me of my experiences with him. So I had this feeling of the potential of the art form being able to give somebody that sense of magic that could potentially influence the way they look at their own lives. And I later got that confirmation when I got much better, and I would show people, and this was 10 years down the road. I finally someone came up to me and said, "Wow, that changed my entire week. Like my whole world felt brighter for a whole week." And I felt like, I'd finally accomplished what I felt from this experience. So that was kind of the first spark. It was a few days later, David Blaine's special came out, and I remember what he did. He did the part that got me was that, see a card in the deck, and do the whole Riffle Force thing. Or what is that? That's probably not Riffle Force. Riffle Force is normally this thing, right? So what is that? Doesn't matter. But yeah, and then he does Snap Change, right? And I had to figure it out. So I sat there. I did not know there was already tutorials on YouTube. So I sat there watching him do this performance over and over and over again, just like studying it. And I remember being like, okay, there's two fingers there, and then there's one. So that's the finger doing the move. And I would just break it all down. And I loved that. I enjoyed the puzzle aspect of it. And then I enjoyed the process of doing it. And, the process of doing it reminded me so much of drawing. It reminded me of that precision and detail of something. And I kind of fell in love with that as well. Soon after, I found a copy of Bobo's Modern Coin Magic in a bookstore in North Carolina. Was I in North Carolina at the time? Yeah, I think that's right. I moved around a lot. Hard to remember all the states. But I believe I was in North Carolina. I remember this copy because it was super tattered. It's this old worn book, and it was in a Barnes and Noble, which I thought was really funny because, you know, Barnes and Noble doesn't sell used books. So there's this used, like, worn out copy of Bobo sitting on this shelf. And I still didn't have the money to afford it. We grew up really poor, so I didn't have the money to purchase this book. So I would sit in there, I'd read the book, I'd study everything, and then I'd go home, get my coins my grandpa gave me, and practice everything I could possibly remember. So I was actively trying to, like, remember that book from cover to cover. So I got into coins and cards at the same time. And soon after that, I was, due to the chaos of my family, I was kicked out of my house, and I was a young kid living in my car because I was 15 when I started Magic. This was a few years later, and I was drawing. I still wanted to go to school for drawing, not so much Magic. And, you know, not that there are schools for Magic, but you get what I'm saying. And I was living out of my car, and my car ended up catching fire, and I lost everything I owned in this car fire. I lost all my money in cash. So it was like a young paranoid hippie kid who didn't believe in banks. And so I lost all my cash. I lost 2 guitars because I was learning to play music at the same time. And I lost this sketchbook that I had, like, since I was really young. I think since I was 11 years old, I had this sketchbook. So I had multiple sketchbooks that I had sewn together. It was like this thick of just like all of my work. And it was kind of devastating to lose that. But when I lost it, and I sat there watching my car burning in front of me, and as I remember this moment, because at first it was this profound grief of like, oh, there goes my money, there goes all my clothes, there goes my guitars, there goes my sketchbook, there goes everything. And there was like 10 decks of cards in there as well, which we'll get back around on that because that was kind of funny. But I sat there, and I remember feeling this moment of grief. And when the first tire exploded, so when a tire gets really hot on a car and explodes, blue sparks fly everywhere. And that was cool. And that moment just kind of snapped me out of this moment of grief. It was very similar to that experience of Magic, where it just kind of interrupts your thoughts and you're just left there in this state of awe. So I had this moment of awe, and then I started laughing hysterically. And I think I laughed for like 30 minutes straight. And some people were concerned. They thought I was having a psychotic break. And but in reality, I felt free. Everything I had just burned, and I had nothing. I had no attachments, basically. And there was something really freeing about that. And once the car at one point actually exploded, the windows blew out, and playing cards flew out of this car in all directions because there's like 10 decks of cards in the center console, and playing cards everywhere. So
wait a second. So sorry to interrupt. It's a fascinating story. I want to know more. How did the car catch fire? I have to know.
Yeah. So I loaned it my friend's little brother. This is kind of a funny story. He comes up to me, goes, "Hey man, my girlfriend's having an asthma attack. Can I borrow your car?" And I said, "Yeah, dude, here, go get her inhaler, take care of her." I was a very trusting person. And it turns out the cure to an asthma attack, I didn't know this, is to take your friend's car, take it off-roading in the back of the neighborhood so you can have sex with your girlfriend in your friend's car. So there wasn't an asthma attack, basically. And he got it stuck.
For the record, you would have lent him the car for the real reason, right?
Huh?
You would have lent him the car for the real reason, right?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah, of course. You didn't even make
no. No. For the real reason. Maybe not, given that all my belongings were in it.
All right.
It was my house at that point. So, and we didn't know each other that way. He's more so like my friend's little brother.
Okay, I gotcha.
And so, yeah. Anyways, he got the car stuck taking it off-roading. It was a Hyundai Elantra. You can't take a Hyundai Elantra off-roading. And he got it stuck, and we were in a drought, and the converter was touching ground. And he kept revving up the engine trying to get it out, and that lit this hay on fire that was the ground that was droughted, so it was like, super dry. The whole thing caught fire. And yeah, he called me, or no, I think I called him because like, hey man, it's been like 2 hours. Where are you? He says, hey man, I'm in the back of the neighborhood. Your car's on fire. And I said, you're joking, right? He goes, no, I'm really not joking. And at that point, I looked out the window and I could see this huge pillar of smoke, so I knew he was serious. And that was when I ran over there and saw the car on fire. But I had this moment of freedom and, of losing everything and feeling like, wow, I could do anything right now. I'm not tied down. That led to me going on a journey and hitchhiking around the country and living out in the woods for a few months. And I lived out in the woods for a few months in the wilderness with a friend of mine. And we hitchhiked as well, made our way up into the Smoky Mountains, and I ended up getting a job as a whitewater raft guide where I worked for a summer. And I used to entertain my guests as I take them down the river. And, we do all kinds of things. I used to pull the walnuts off of the tree as we were rafting down the river, and I would do juggling tricks. I'd vanish the walnuts. I'd do all these kinds of things. But it was, it was more like rafting's more of an entertaining gig than anything else. There's a lot of calm spots between rapids where you got to keep people entertained with storytelling and whatever it may be. So we have so many like nonsensical stories as raft guides. We used to tell people about beaver sharks. They're this thing that lives in the water. It kind of looks like a beaver, but it's really, really sharp teeth. And you have to be careful. Don't dip your feet in the water. They will bite you. And all the raft guides, we had our toenails painted like all different colors. And we told people it was beaver shark repellent because, what was the name of this fish? It was some weird, we had this really weird name for this fish that apparently looked similar to how painted toenails looked, and it warded off the beaver sharks. And we would tell them, oh, this is where, the beaver sharks, they smack their tail on the surface of the water, and that's how they stun their prey. And they stun them, and then they eat them. So this is a part where there's a lot of beaver sharks, so keep your limbs inside the boat. And at that point, you would take your paddle and you smack it on the surface of the water, and then you'd spin around real quick and go, holy shit, did anyone see that beaver shark? That one was huge. And you just make up these nonsensical, silly stories to keep people entertained all the time. And people would believe it. You really could get them to believe this because they were already in this place that was just like magical out in the wilderness on this crazy river. And you're this person leading them, and oddly enough, they would believe all of your nonsensical stories. So that had a huge role in magic as well, because I learned a lot about presentation building and storytelling just by hanging out with them, and just kind of more so like off the cuff improvising.
Right.
So I did that for a bit, and when the rafting season ended, I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go back to my old life. I didn't want to do that. I enjoyed being out in the woods and traveling and living in this raft guide community and getting to entertain people. And so I thought, oh, maybe I'll go out west to California. Maybe something will happen there. And I hitchhiked across the country. It took me 7 days. And along the way, I did a lot of busking.
What year is this?
What year is this? This was 12 years ago, about 12 years ago.
Okay.
So it would have been, what's
2008?
In 2020, so it would have been 2009.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, not a good time to hitchhike, if that's what you're asking.
I think that stopped in 1980 something. That you're
right.
Hitchhiking anymore. Yeah.
Kansas was the worst. I swear to you, I think I just walked straight through Kansas. I think I walked it border to border because no one would pick me up. And I remember at one point, it was a hot day and I'd run out of water and I was on foot for so long. It's just farmland for miles. There's no gas station, nothing for so long that I couldn't get water. And I remember sitting on the side of the road like this with my Nalgene showing that it was empty and my thumb out, just letting people know like, holy shit, I need water. And I was getting into a point where I felt like I was going to pass out. People still wouldn't pick me up and still just drive right past me. I eventually made it to a gas station after countless hours, and I ended up like sleeping on the ground next to this gas station after I got some water and food. But yeah, it took a while. I eventually made my way out to, I really enjoyed St. Louis, Missouri, and got to do some busking there. And I met a guy who had my same name, first and last. And he ran this bar in St. Louis, Missouri called the Venice Cafe, or he was a bartender there. But this was it's a really neat bar. Things all over the walls, and like it's entertaining even just to be there. But yeah, I was there. I was chatting with this guy, and we got to talking about meditation, because I was practicing meditation at that time. And he gave me this book, and it was called the Shambhala Sacred Path of the Warrior. And this book was on meditation, more so from the Tibetan Buddhist perspective. And I was like, oh, that's cool. And he gave the book to me, and I was reading it, and I was really loving it.
Well,
and I continued on.
No, I hate to interrupt you. I hate to interrupt you because, I don't want to backtrack.
No, anytime.
All the way to the beginning of the story, because I have some notes I took back of what you said. First of all, when you say busking, are you like in the street? Are you in a like a town square kind of thing? Are you at a restaurant? And what are you doing exactly for busking?
Yeah, so we'll definitely talk about that. Do you mind if I get back around to it in a bit?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I got stuck. The reason I was stopped in St. Louis, Missouri is I got stuck there from a snowstorm. And this guy at this bar also gave me a room in the back of the bar to stay in, and gave me this book. And I loved the book. The book was amazing, and I really enjoyed it. So then I started to make my way out to California again, and I got stuck by another snowstorm in Fort Collins in Colorado. And turned out that my aunt lived there. And I didn't know that because I got stuck in Fort Collins, and I called someone in my family, I can't remember, and they were like, MJ lives out there. I said, MJ lives in Fort Collins? They're like, yeah. So I called her, and I was like apparently like 2 blocks away from her, which was so funny, such a weird thing to find out. My aunt and my mom's sister. So I went and stayed with them for a while, and I was sitting on the porch, and they said, and I was sitting on the porch, and one of the neighbors came out, and he saw the book I was reading. And he says, oh, have you been to the Shambhala Mountain Center, which was this Buddhist retreat center isolated up in the mountains near Fort Collins? And I said, no. He goes, well, the guy who wrote that book, his main center is like right here. And it's like 45 minutes away. So we went, and I ended up living there and spending a summer there, studying meditation, studying mindfulness, awareness, and still practicing diligently magic, juggling, contact juggling, fire spinning, arts, and trying to find the connection between mind, awareness, and this. So I spent a lot of time there, and eventually I traveled more around for a while, and that was when I started doing even more busking. And when I'm referring to busking, I mean more so, in like outdoor mall areas or, main downtown areas, strip malls, things like that. That's places that I've always found to be best when you have a lot of traffic. So in Boulder, Colorado is where I did most of my busking. And street performance is such an interesting form of magic. It's tough. Everyone's got somewhere they're trying to go. They're on their way to dinner. They're on their way to something, and they don't necessarily want to stop and see a magic trick. You have to woo them. You got to really seduce them in, or you got to just aggressively go, "Hey, you, come here, come here, come here," which is some people take that approach. And then once you have a small enough crowd, you perform until you get more attention and more people come, and then you get a bigger crowd, and then you do your full show. And I would get out there and I performed, all day. I do 8-9 hours straight of like 20-30-minute sets. Right. And it was pretty good money. So that was what I did for a living. I just did that. And that taught me so much about this art form. How to pull an audience, because basically you need to be able to connect with your audience before you even do magic. And that showed me so much, because if you are relating to them in a kind way, and if you can connect with them with just your personality, just your persona, and bring them in, they're going to be a lot more open to seeing magic and to being entertained. So that taught me a lot in just how to relate to another human being. I mean, some of the other aspects of it is that they're not paying, they didn't pay you to come to a party and perform. They don't owe you any kind of respect. And because you are working on the street, you kind of get treated like a homeless person,
Right.
even if you're dressed in slacks and a vest. Just because you have a hat out asking for money, you're in a humble position. People will take advantage of you. And I had people who try to steal my hat off my table and run off with it. And I had people who were just schmucks during my show. I remember once I had a guy in this, put the cards on the table, and I turned around and said, yeah, pull anyone out you want. And he took my cards and just flung them off the table into the middle of the street. The whole deck, just boom. And I didn't know what to do. I mean, I was just here, and he just, in the middle of a show, I think I had like 50 people in front of me, and nobody moved. Nobody helped me pick my cards up off the floor. I got down on the floor and picked my cards up myself, and I said, that's the end of my show, bye. And I just packed my shit up and went and walked off, because I was just so hurt by it. And that taught me so much about busking. I thought to myself, why did that happen? Like, what happened there? Why did he feel the need to do that? And this was something I started to study. And I started to study socially. And by being out there, I found that people in general could become very aggressive around magic. We live in the age of information, where you can know anything with the click of a button. You can just hop online, type, and know things. You hear people say things sometimes like, oh, you don't know that? And they say it in this kind of demeaning term. We live in a culture where knowledge is respect. And if you're not knowledgeable, you're not worthy of respect. And so to perform for somebody, bring about an experience of, I don't know, right? Which is the outcome of magic. It's a sense of mystery. That sense of mystery is insulting to people. It can be something magical. I mean, I think you have to first not know before you can know. So appreciating the experience of not knowing gives space for new knowledge and new insight. But in a world where we respect people based off of what they know and not what they don't know, it's sometimes taken as an insult or met with a lot of aggression. And I got to see that. And I got to see also the parts of my personality that were making it worse. And whether it was trying to, look like the smartest person in the room, or look at how great I am, look at how amazing I am, and making it about myself. Anytime somebody gets up and goes, look how great I am, et cetera, I mean, what are you doing? You're comparing yourself to everyone else. You're going, you watch me because I am great. And it's a very aggressive thing. And it's funny because it's self-focused, but it's actively aggressive towards your audience. And I got to watch and see it really close up. And I learned that I could diffuse those kinds of people by being kind with them, by not coming into my performance with so much ego, and being there not to make myself look good, but to make people happy. And I started to notice that even when I had that mindset of like, oh, I'm here to offer this as a gift, not, oh, I'm here to make myself look good, but I'm here to offer this as a gift, people even approached me differently, because I think that shows in the way that we hold ourselves, in the way that we speak. And that changed my magic. It then changed the way I performed magic. It changed the way I structured my routines, my scripting, all kinds of things. I mean, that's an environment where people feel that they can be aggressive towards you. But I learned through busking, I learned through walk around, I learned through parlor magic that even though when you're in a more paid gig environment, people do not feel like they can be aggressive towards you because you're actually paid to be there. You're a special person in the social dynamics of that group, they still feel that type of aggression towards you when you make them feel inferior. And it was something that I become so accustomed to from performing on the streets that I could see it in people in very subtle ways. And I could notice I was doing it, stop, flip what I was doing, and all of a sudden win them over immediately. So I got to see this kind of neurotic aspect of performing and then learning how to do it in a way that was a lot kinder and allowed people to feel invited into the experience of not knowing and enjoy the mystery. So there you go. That's a super lengthy, somewhat origin story.
Well, it's pretty cinematic. You know, I'm a TV comic book kind of guy, and you know, you gave us a Superman story basically, right? Like you grow up in less than ideal conditions. You are down on your luck. When you think you can't be any more down on your luck, your car explodes. You know, so you decide to walk the earth like Caine in Kung Fu, and you wind up in Colorado, and you know these dominoes of fate put you in this place. You know, starting with your grandfather who has coins, and maybe not necessarily for magic, but he leaves you the coins, and in passing them on, they give you the greatest gift almost immediately after he passes away at his, you know, funeral, right? And and then this leads you to get into it and discover coins and cards at the same time. You move out, you get to this low point, your car explodes, you walk the earth, and you wind up in Colorado in a fortress of solitude, where you go away to learn the lessons that Jarrell has to give you. And then you come down from the mountain, much like Moses or whatever, and you take that and you take it with your busking experience, you put it all together, you take everything, the meditation, the fate, magic, the performing, and it all comes together, and this is where, you know, it comes out to this.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking.
You ever read Joseph Campbell?
Huh? No, but I've seen Apocalypse.
Have you ever read Joseph Campbell?
I've seen Apocalypse Now a lot. Yeah, I've read Heart of Darkness. Yes. Yeah.
Nice.
So,
yeah, the hero's journey. It's such a fascinating study on, you know, that approaching life in this way where we lean so much into our obstacles that they bring us to a place of freedom.
And there's so much work that goes into all of that. I know I've witnessed it firsthand to make it look like people like you and Aaron make it look. I was speaking to Alex about it because you're the first person I'm talking to that I don't have a personal relationship outside of doing this. And you know, he asked me what I thought when I thought of you. I said I thought about Rey from Star Wars, because I pictured you like in a forest in an ohm position, but circling you is not rocks, but coins, you know, in the atom. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's ever happened to you, where you're just using your force to.
No. Not yet.
Not yet. You check me out in 10 years. But I mean, I found that so fascinating about, you know, the connection with your grandfather and getting the coins. And then but the coins were the first thing. Coins were before cards. And so when I
learned the coin trick first.
And so my question is, when you're busking or whatever you do, and I don't know how you mainly perform now, if there's still a lot of that, or you just do your over the internet stuff, or, I mean, are you performing? I mean, no one's performing live much now, but
right.
But was that something you were doing, say, 6 months ago?
Yeah, so it was actually about a year and a half ago. I ruptured a disc in my spine.
Oh.
In my youth, I did a lot of physical extreme sports. So I was a whitewater raft guide, but I was also a whitewater kayaker, and we did some really, 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 really gnarly rivers, and I was also part of Swift Water Rescue Team for a while. And the training for that was intense. One guy broke his back in the process of, they make you like swim rapids. Like, here's a class 6 rapid. You need to know how to swim through this without dying. And that was part of training. And I did it because if I had Swiftwater Rescue certified, I got paid significantly more as a raft guide. So I was like, oh, let's go get this certification. And I had no idea what I was getting into. They're like, yeah, go swim that and don't die. And it was, one guy broke his back on it. And I didn't get hurt in that process, but I definitely I got beat up a little bit, but no like serious injuries. But I continued to do those kinds of extreme sports, even downhill longboarding at like 50 miles an hour on mountain roads, and whitewater kayaking, wakeboarding, skateboarding, so many different things that I really beat myself up over the years. And I guess one day it kind of accumulated to a point where, I was getting sciatica, I was getting nerve pain down my leg. And one day I woke up, I got out of bed, and boom, it just popped. And my back, this disc in my lower back exploded. And I hit the ground in extreme writhing pain for 36 straight hours, I think it was, before I got any kind of drugs in me to make the pain stop. And it was an intense experience for me. I've heard people talk about how a certain degree of pain can make you commit suicide. And I never understood that until that experience. And, it's that there is a certain degree of pain that is just, you're willing to throw your life away to make it stop. And after that experience, I've spent the last year and a half really working with that. I was working around, it took me a little bit to work through the psychological aspect of like, wow, I was ready to throw my life away to make the pain stop. And how that kind of, that experience had a huge influence on my relationship to the pain over the last year and a half, and learning how to manage it. That part of me, very similar to that experience, just didn't want to deal with it. It was just, I don't want this. I don't want this. I want to stop somehow. And at some point I thought, okay, I need to take this seriously. I need to start doing PT, exercising, doing every single thing I need to take care of this. And that's what I've been doing this last year and a half, which has led to more teaching magic than outperforming. I can't stand for long periods of time, so I can't do busking and street performance, which I love. I love busking and street performing. I like it a lot at times. Other times I hated it. But later on, I've grown to learn how to work that environment, and I've learned to love it. But so I couldn't do that so much because I couldn't be on my feet, and I couldn't do, private events and corporate events also because I couldn't be on my feet. I couldn't bring my close-up table in. Even driving at times was extremely difficult. In the beginning, is that? It's ringing. Is it you or me? Oh, that's me. Sorry. Yeah. Turning it off. Oh, where'd it go? Yeah. I'm trying to I can make it stop on here. Okay. Sorry about that, guys. In the beginning, my right leg was paralyzed, and it took me a while to get even mobility back in my foot. I was walking on my heel for the longest time because my foot couldn't push down, which meant I couldn't even drive a car because I couldn't push the pedal. So yeah, I've spent the last year and a half, almost 2 years now, taking care of that. And that's been a lot of teaching and a lot less performing. But I hope to get back to performing because I really miss it. I did it for about 14 years. I did walk around, parlor, street performance, bunch of different venues and styles.
I'm so interested in something that you said. So you go into the mountains, into the Fortress of Solitude for, you said 5 years, right?
About 4.5, 5 years. Yeah.
Okay, so I've delved a little bit into meditation, and I've been able to use some guided meditation to help me, and I have my mantra, which I which I say sometimes in moments of extreme stress, and when my son hears me start to say it, he says, oh God. You know,
that's his mantra.
well, it's better than what was going to happen if I didn't start saying it. So, you know, I started saying it.
Yeah.
And you would think almost that someone who has put that much hard work into meditation, that something like horrible pain like that would almost be, I don't want to say easier, but you know, it's still, maybe talk a little bit about how it's kind of just another tool in the toolbox to help with something like that. I would love to hear you.
Yeah, that. Absolutely. And it very much is. I mean, you know, even just on the, you know, realm of mantra, we all have a mantra. You know, every single one of us, there's some kind of words we repeat to ourselves, whether it's, oh shit, you fucked that up again. You know, some people, that's their mantra. They go through their life continuously telling themselves they're a fuck up, or telling themselves they're not good enough. Or some people, it's the opposite. It's really prideful. It's, oh, I'm the best. I'm better than everyone else. And that over time has an influence on your brain. You're framing your outlook on life through this lens of how you look at yourself. I mean, every experience in life is you, the subject, relating to the world, the object. And therefore, whatever you feel about yourself is directly influences your experience of the outer world. If you wake up feeling great, you go about your life feeling like life is great. If you wake up feeling like shit, you go about life feeling like life is shit. So, you know, we are all meditating in some way, whether it's we're meditating on some neurotic idea about ourselves, or, you know, or whether it's a great, you know, a good thing. We're all doing it. And therefore it's to me, it's like, it's just a very normal part of life to learn how to have discipline over our minds. Meditation is just one way of doing that, right? We sit down, we place our mind on the breath, and we place our mind on the feeling of the body breathing, and just feeling the sensation of the body breathing. And when thoughts arise, we notice there's a thought. We don't judge it. It's neither good nor bad. It's just a thought, and we go, okay. But we come back. We come back to this feeling. And by doing this, we discipline the mind into being able to be steady and not be taken away by thoughts. Because, you know, we do get taken away by thoughts. We're kind of like a dog that, you know, you throw a stick and the dog goes and chases it. And we do that with our thoughts. We think a thought and then we go farther and farther and farther and farther with it until we've imagined this whole situation that's not actually present. And whether that's an idea about ourselves or an idea about our world, it creates a lens in which we then see the world through in a faulty kind of way, or we see ourselves through in a kind of faulty way. We build this conceptual layer on top of everything. So it's something that, you know, we're doing all the time as human beings, and something we have to be really aware of, because even pain, you know, or any kind of discomfort is just a sensation. Oops, sorry, my screen's going out. Okay, it's just a sensation. It's just, you know, it's a tactile feeling in the body. But we go, oh, this is good or this is bad. And when we start fixating on whatever those things are, you know, if it's this is bad, we start getting tighter and tighter. We want to defend ourselves from it. The body goes into, the brain starts releasing cortisol, a threatened state. You start trying to guard your fleshy areas. You start clenching. That releases more stress hormone. And that actually exasperates pain and depression and stress. So our thoughts have this very powerful influence over our minds. And, you know, so it's something that we all should really have awareness over, and just in terms of having that discipline to feel whatever is present as what it is, rather than layering a bunch of conceptualities on top of it and exasperating it or ignoring it, or getting fixated on something where we want it and we're constantly like get a little grabby or attached to things, and then we miss out on what we do have. You know, there's many ways that it can arise, this conceptual fixation of mind.
Okay. Well, no,
I talk a lot on this topic.
no, that's okay. That's okay. That's what I wanted. But it's hard for me, and I'm just going to do one follow-up because we did have a couple of questions come in. I'm going to be a little selfish, okay?
Yeah, no.
You told us some very deep stuff, and I really want to know, when you wake up in as great as pain as you ever had, which you said was not too long ago, so much to the point where you're thinking very dark thoughts, right?
Yeah.
Can you even begin your heavy breathing process at that moment?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. That's absolutely part of the human experience. Is there's a point where the pain gets so bad, or the mind gets so stirred up in stress or depression or whatever it is, that we can't even direct ourselves back, and we get lost. And that absolutely, for me, I've been practicing meditation for many years before I have that experience. So I had the discipline to be able to relate to that experience. And that's why meditation as a consistent practice is important, because meditation isn't rainbows and unicorns. Sometimes you sit down and it's uncomfortable feelings come up, and you have to just be with the feeling, not try to think your way through it, but just feel it, just to be present with it. And that's also conditioning the mind to be present and to relate to what's occurring. So the more we do that, the more accustomed we come to doing that, even in more difficult, painful times. And that can be a powerful experience. For me, my threshold for discomfort is much greater than it ever was, because I was able to be present through that experience. Had I kind of stirred and tried to distract myself and not met that extreme pain so fully, I might not have the insight I have today, which is that, now I know how much I can handle. So when I get to a point in my life that's really painful or uncomfortable, whether it's emotional or physical, I know what I'm capable of. And, we keep pushing that ability to accommodate more and more discomfort by having that discipline and strength to just be present with it, to just feel it. And I think, that takes time. That takes a lot of time, and it takes a gentleness with yourself. You can't just go, okay, here's an extreme amount of pain, let's jump into this. That might not be practical. That might be more than we can handle. And I have things like that. I have certain emotional traumas from my youth that sometimes I go and I want to go sit down and practice meditation, and I could feel that starting to come up because it's present in my life in some way, and it's more than I can handle. And I just go, okay, meditation is probably not the best thing to do if I'm just going to sit there and beat myself up over this. Maybe I need to find some other way to ground myself first before jumping into this. So I do at some point want to talk about how meditation relates to magic and creating magic for those who might be more interested in that aspect of it. But
whatever.
I hope
Wednesday night.
I hope that. But does that answer your question?
It does, and it answers it in a really succinct way, and I appreciate it. And I will jump into a couple questions we've gotten here. Jeff, who is a longtime, almost founding member of the community, asked if your busking sets consists of only cards and coins, or one or the other, or is it a mixture of everything?
Yeah, so it's mostly cards and coins. I also did a lot of contact juggling. And this is an art form I highly recommend.
Are we about to get some labyrinth? Are we going to get some labyrinth action?
Yeah.
I'm all excited. Oh, here we go. I love that.
So,
I'm like a kid in a candy store right now. I did lots of raving and partying in my younger days, and I never could figure it out.
Yeah. Oh, this thing takes such an absurd amount of practice and time. But yeah, so what I love about contact juggling is it's visual. I don't have to get somebody to come and participate. They can just see it. And it was so easy to captivate people with this. And, oops, sorry, I gotta come back. Right. Weird. Okay. Anyways,
I can watch that for hours. You got me. I'm done. I can just watch you do that. I don't see a string anywhere.
This thing's way too heavy to float on a string. But anyways, this I love doing this. So I did this for busking as well because it was something that really could allow me to pull people in, and I could be playful with them. They would stop and they would see it, and I would do this, and I'd go over and I let them pull the string, or if I was here and I was floating it, I said, here, poke it. And if they would tap it, I would then, wherever they, so if I was isolating this and they came over and tapped it, that would make it kind of go in that direction, whatever it be. So allowing them to kind of play with me and get them in this mindset that, oh, we're playing together. And that's all this is. This isn't, I'm going to fool you. I'm going to make myself look better than you. I'm going to win a challenge against you and making you believe in something that's not true. It's, no, we're playing. We're invoking imagination together in a way that feels mutually beneficial and mutually enjoyable. And this always allowed me to have a really good way into that. But mostly cards, coins, and this. So
sorry, I get mesmerized by that. That's almost a form of meditation itself once you know how to do it without thinking about it.
Yeah, for sure. Once you could just feel into it. I think anything could be a meditation as long as it's just whatever you're doing, you're present with. You're present with the sensory experience of it, and it's the same thing like when I practice a move with coins. If you want to get really good at this, let go of the thoughts and focus on like most magicians, if you were to ask them, what does that move feel like against your fingers? They probably couldn't tell you. They think about it. It's a conceptual thing. This finger extends, it pulls in, it goes there. And when they think about the move, they think about it in terms of thought. I know what this move feels like against my fingers. I know what part of, without even doing it, I know what part of my middle finger it touches. I know how it feels as it slides along my thumb, when it makes contact with certain parts of my skin. And that's the kind of awareness I put into practice, is that sense of feeling. Because ultimately, you're not looking at the coin, you're not looking in a mirror when you're performing for somebody. So you know it's done right based off of how it feels against your skin. And it's a kinesthetic thing to be able to do sleight of hand. So the more aware you are of the sensations, the better you're integrating muscle memory, because that is actually the neurological input that your brain uses to build these habits in the first place. So mindfulness, just in terms of practice, will greatly increase the speed and rate in which you are able to master a move. So that's one aspect of how mindfulness can apply to practice and magic. Another is in terms of creativity. Someone was just asking me, they go, how do you come up with so much stuff? And I have a lot of material on the market, and I've got 7 more projects planned, and I'll probably, by the time those are all launched, I'm sure I'll have plenty more material to release, because I found how to tap into that sense of creativity and just create. So I'll talk about it a little bit with you guys, share my discoveries, and that the first is you have to get out of habitual ways of thinking. If you always think in the same ways, you will always get the same outcomes. And this is why so many magicians, they create magic and constantly find out somebody else did it before. Or even what is new in magic is kind of just a variation on older things. And, not to say my stuff isn't also plenty of that, but and that's because we learned this art form, we learn these ways of thinking, and then we just use those ways of thinking. So everyone's getting to the same destination all the time. You have to question this art form. You have to look at it and go, wait, what do I believe that? Is that true? Does that ring true to my direct experience? And are there aspects of that that I'd like to change or look at differently? How can I look at that in a new way? And then, that's just in terms of looking at the art form and what's already been established in a new way and not following the same trains of thought. But then also putting the art form aside and thinking, okay, given what I already know, if I were to take a coin, like, what can I do with this? What happens in terms of putting a coin into the hand? How do you vanish a coin? If I were to think about this from a completely new way, like I was looking at it for the first time, right? Because then there's no habitual tendencies. If I say, well, if you either have to, you have to do this, or this, then I'm looking at it from a place of habit already. I'm going to follow the same trains of thoughts I've always followed. If I look at a new way, I say, okay, here's a coin. We want to make it disappear. So it's in the hand. It has to leave the hand. Which ways can it leave the hand? Leave the hand that way, this way. Then I can start looking at possibilities, So when we look at it in a new way, we start thinking in new ways. Like, I could place it in the hand and then steal it out of the hand. So it could be that kind of thing, right? Where it actually goes into the hand and gets stolen out of the hand. Or maybe it's something where you have the coin and it never actually goes onto the floor. But it never actually goes into the hand, right? So there's all kinds of different ways of looking at these things. Then you can look at your grip. Everyone holds a coin between your first finger and thumb. The one I just did is something that I had this idea not too long ago based off of just looking at different ways to hold a coin. And this came about because I was spinning a coin and I caught it like this because I thought, what's a different way to catch the coin, right? Just trying to think differently. And I caught it like this and I thought, oh, what can I do from here? We do a retention from here even. Do something like that, right? So this retention is a creation of mine based off of just thinking in a new way. So we have to break the mold of how we think. We have to think in new ways. We got to let go of habitual tendencies. And that's what meditation does. If you're sitting there and you're just focusing on your breath, you're just being present. Each breath is a new moment. Each moment is a new moment. It's completely fresh. It's not preconditioned. It's not habitual. Each moment, you can't control what's going to arise, a sound that may arise in the environment, a smell, a feeling in the body. So it's always new. So when you're present with that, and then a thought arises and you start thinking about something, that's habit. Thought is based off of the subject, a sense of self. It's understanding of whatever the object is. Maybe you have a feeling, right? And that feeling comes up and maybe it's associated with a kind of memory. You have a pain, you notice a sensation here in your chest and it reminds you of this moment you had where you were drowning and you didn't have oxygen. And then you start thinking about, about drowning and, oh my God, if I would have drowned that day, but my dad saved me. And your thoughts just you start going off on these stories and you forget what the actual present moment is, which is the sensation. We get hung up on habit of thinking. So just practicing meditation is a way to get out of these habitual tendencies and allow ourselves to think from new, fresher ways, to look at the world from a new perspective, to look at it as if we were looking at it for the first time. And that's what presence truly is to look at any given moment without any preconceptualities about what it is, because that's habit too. I could pick this up and we go coin. Then I'm not looking at it for the first time. I'm putting a label on it called coin. That's a concept that I'm layering on it. The second I say coin, my brain has all its associations with what coin means. Value, Morgan dollar, sleight of hand, like all these things that my brain associates with the word coin and with this object. That's so much conceptual layering put onto something that is simpler than that and does not need to be bound down by those concepts. If I look at this like I'm looking at it for the first time, I may notice something new. I may make new discoveries rather than just immediately jumping to everything I have known in the past. This is why the experience of not knowing in magic is such a profound gift to offer somebody. Because when you could clear away their concepts, which is what we do, right? You do a trick, they believe it's there. They have a whole story about how it's there, and then it's gone. Their whole story about what was happening just fell away. That's a moment of I don't know, or a moment of freshness. That is the moment in which new experience can arise from, free from habitual tendencies, free from preconception. Then we can see the world as if we were seeing it for the first time. Because in each moment being different, we are seeing it for the first time.
But you don't have to explain it to us what it is in your hand, because we all have the common knowledge that it's a coin.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. Anyway, I got one more question from out there, and then I got one more question for me. Okay. The question from out there is Annette asks, how do you feel about exposure on YouTube?
What are we talking about? Are we talking about people exposing other people's tricks, like that have been recently published or still on the market? Or are we talking about exposing like basic things like the retention vanish and stuff Bobos and other guys did many years ago?
I don't know. Maybe they're talking about your personal exposure on YouTube. I don't really know. It could mean so many things. I feel like we should all just assume that exposure for something new is bad.
Yeah, I think, I mean, right, if it's for something new, yeah, then you're right. So that's obviously like, that's theft.
Yeah.
But, so if so, right, because that's their intellectual property that they're selling.
Right.
So that, yes, I, of course, obviously do not agree with that kind of exposure. Exposure of things like Crazy Man's handcuffs, right? Take the rubber bands, you put them together, you pull them apart. Yeah, I think that's great. I love people. I love magicians exposing that stuff. If that hurts you, if that is something that you go, oh my God, this person's ruining my career by doing that, then you need to adapt. That's the beauty of life. Challenges come and we adapt. That's actually how we evolved as a species, is due to these kinds of obstacles, of taking our previous resources and stripping them from us and saying, no, you need to develop better resources if you want to survive this. That's how you grow. That's nature. So I think that's a beautiful thing in the magic community, when if you're leaning on old concepts and somebody goes and reveals it, then good. Now you could do something new. You could be something more unique. Everyone does Crazy Man's handcuffs. Jesus Christ, it drives me nuts. And just like, I've seen so many people that are like, yeah, I saw this magician, but he did a lot of the same stuff this other magician did. And just like, that's not really cool at that point. That's not that fun. You don't hear that from painters. You don't go, yeah, that looks exactly like this other painter's thing. You know, because painters know not to do that kind of thing. Your art is a unique expression of you. Now, there's ways of taking old concepts, old routines, and presenting them in a new way. And I think that's beautiful. In which case, then you don't even have to worry about if it's exposed, because if you present it in a unique way, they won't even recognize it as the thing they saw on YouTube, because the presentation is the focus.
That kind of should be your job.
You know? Right. No, you would think so.
Yeah. And one more from me. You gave us a wonderful Wednesday night meeting a couple weeks ago, and since then you've been around, and it seems like you like us. You really like us. What do you like about?
I do.
What do you like about the Conjuror community? That's what I want to know.
Yeah. Oh, I love the supportiveness of it. I found that so refreshing, and that I'm part of these Facebook groups. You guys know them, Magicians Only, Coin Magicians, all these different groups. I actually run the Coin Magicians Facebook group. I got voted into being one of the admins for that, me and David Fillery and Micheletti. And yeah, it's just I want to use a term that's not publicly appropriate, so we won't use that one. The people constantly measuring their egos against each other. Not able to take criticism. Most people not even giving good criticism. Just a lot of is constantly battling with each other on things, and it's just no one grows in that situation. That's how you just get fixed into, you're constantly just trying to find support for your ego, pushing it against others. This is my view, and you're never changing and growing. What I loved about the Conjuror community, just even the Facebook group, was just everyone was so supportive. Everyone was so kind. I remember when I first jumped on, I went through old posts as the first thing I did, and I started going through and I scrolled through and just reading, like, everyone was so kind. Like, they always gave such good feedback, and they never overextended it. It felt supportive. It felt like they were really trying to help that person grow. And it always seemed that they did it in a way that that person was able to receive it well. And I just loved that. It had that sense of care to it. And that's what I want to see in the magic community. I want to see a community where we can support each other. so that we can actually grow. And when somebody presents something new, we can go, oh, I like that. That's an interesting way of looking at it, rather than, nope, that's wrong because Bobo said this, or David Roth said this. Or it's like, that's a great way to stifle the growth of this community. And I see a lot of people do that. They go, nope, that's just wrong. And it's like, yeah, you don't need to just immediately say that's wrong. Sure, there's certain sets of rules to Magic that I think are helpful. As you guys may know, I'm very strict when it comes to proper motivation. And I mean, I think that would apply to any art form. Each moment, you're going to call it an art, then that means each moment has purpose. That's kind of what it means to be an art form. Each moment is an expression. It's not just filler or nonsensical, but it accomplishes something. It's refined to that degree. That is what an art form is. So when I see things in Magic that aren't properly motivated, that's the kind of rules I'm strict about. But
Can I get
some
an
people
example?
get fixed in old ways.
Can I get an example of bad motivation in something?
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's usually people have some coins, they're here, and let's say they do this, they show that one coin's disappeared, right? And then they'll go and they'll split these coins, show them, two, come back, and then come over and do this, take one off, like so. Or it's usually done with shells. So it's normally done with gaff work, where they're here, the first coin's fine, right? Boom. And then they go and they separate them, they show them, put it back on, and then take it off a second later. If this coin is already in this hand, you would just vanish it. Simple as that. This moment, putting it back so that you can use the mechanism of the coin, one kind of directly points to what's going on. You're saying, oh, this has to be here for me to do this, because you're already in position. Now you're taking a step back just to go forward again. It has no proper motivation.
Okay.
Stuff like that, it's also filler. It doesn't make sense. It's a moment that has no purpose. And your spectators watching you, they're aware of you as a performer. You're here, you have 2 coins. Why don't you just do this? When a spectator sees that, there's a moment of, huh? Like, what was the point of that action? And if it doesn't have that sense, then you don't have their continual awareness. If they don't think much of that, then you're performing in a way where they don't feel like they have to be continually aware of what you're doing.
Right.
Because if they were continually aware of what you're doing, this is awkward. That makes no sense. Now, there's ways to motivate this kind of stuff, though, because I do want to give you guys an option here, which is if you're here, you can give motivation to things through presentation. Maybe you're hanging them on hooks, which that doesn't make sense because there's no hole in this coin, but just for the sake of this situation, or maybe the little space pockets you put the coin in, you got to find it. Oh, there it is. It has a texture. When you find the texture of it, you can know exactly where it's at and push that coin into it. This gives motivation. I split 2 coins. I put it back so that I can find my spot. There it is. I come over, put it there. I have to take it in the right hand because it's on my right side. So everything's motivated. And when we perform in this way, there's purpose to what we're doing. It has grace. And when it has grace, it's easy to follow. There's no nonsensical moments. And because each moment makes sense and is concise, we will captivate them and keep their awareness. When we do moments that don't have purpose, it's not worth them being aware of. They're not really present with your routine at that point. But anyways, my point was there's some rules that are necessary, I think, in being very helpful to perpetuating this art. But something I saw in a lot of groups was just people having fixed ideas about things that aren't so fixed. And that was something that I feel like results in a lot of aggression towards people saying, no, this is the right way, that's the wrong way, that's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And
people at other sites are so free with those negative opinions too.
In this community to be magical and supportive. I'm just so impressed with how many people put their ego aside, especially when this art form, it's very easy to have quite the ego about it.
Well, thank you for being so magical and supportive. We really appreciate you, and we're glad you're here. And thank you.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
thank you for coming to my special AMA on, it's Who Day, it's 5:15. If people get that, they get it. But thank you for being here. I appreciate it. I am going to put this up on YouTube at some point today. So that's where we'll be able to find it. And hey, man, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. It was fun, and I appreciate you guys having me on.
Thank you, sir, and hopefully we'll do it again. Hey, everybody, have a good weekend. Wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Bye.